Hello, everyone. Welcome back to 3 News Now. It is Friday, October 23rd. I'm Stephanie Haney. This is where I bring you the top stories from WKYC.com and our WKYC app. Thank you very much for choosing to be here and getting filled in on what's impacting you here in Northeast Ohio on what is, for a lot of Northeast Ohio right now, a very beautiful Friday. But we do have some weather news for you. There is a severe thunderstorm watch in effect for several Northeast Ohio counties. That's through 9 p.m. tonight. Those counties are Ashland, Erie, Huron, Lorain, Ottawa, Richland, and Sandusky. So if you are in any of those areas in the 3 News viewing area, keep an eye out for severe thunderstorms through 9 p.m. tonight on Friday. Now we have those updated numbers in from the Ohio Department of Health, and it is another, unfortunately, record-breaking day for the COVID-19 numbers here in Ohio, with a record for new daily reported cases of COVID-19. And hospitalizations are up again, and so are deaths today from yesterday. The total number of cases reported in the last 24 hours is now 2,518, bringing that total number of cases we've seen here in Ohio to almost 193,000, getting very close to that 200,000 mark. And our 7-day average testing positivity rate is now ticked up over that World Health Organization recommended threshold. It is at 5.1%, and the recommended number is 5%. So we are seeing that go up. There have been 23 new deaths reported in the last 24 hours related to COVID-19, bringing that total number of deaths here in Ohio to now 5,184. And as we talk about these numbers, it gets kind of difficult to remember that these are actual people. These are our Northeast Ohio and Ohio family, friends, neighbors, loved ones. So if you have not yet, there is a series. Our anchor Laura Queso is doing a series, The Faces of COVID. Please check that out so you can put a face to these numbers, and we can see when we talk about masking up, when we talk about washing our hands, when we talk about keeping a safe physical distance, who we're doing it for. Now, in the last 24 hours, there have been 184 new hospitalizations, and the number of people who are currently in the hospital is now 1,347. That's an increase from yesterday. 54 more people in the hospital actively right now related to COVID-19 than there was on yesterday. And there are now a total of 370 of those people being treated in the ICU. That's about 27% of all the people hospitalized with COVID-19 are being treated in the ICU. We've seen 25 new ICU admissions in the last 24 hours. And in terms of the hospital beds, 73% of our hospital beds are being used right now. So 27% of hospital beds available for people that might need them. Now, let's take a look at the U.S. and the global COVID-19 numbers. These numbers come from Johns Hopkins University, and the global number continues to go up at a staggering rate. There have been close to 2 million new global COVID-19 cases in the last 5 days. And as we look at this each day, we also take a look at the percentage of the U.S. cases and the U.S. deaths of COVID-19. When we look at the global total as a whole, we are keeping pace with that increase. We do still have 20% of the COVID-19 cases and 20% of the COVID-19 deaths in the world here in the U.S., despite the fact that we have about 4% of the global population. So let's take a look at those numbers right now. In the U.S., there have now been 8,440,895 cases reported of COVID-19. That's over 250,000 new COVID-19 cases reported in the U.S. since Monday. The total number of deaths in the U.S. is now at 223,381. So that's just over 3,500 new deaths since Monday afternoon. So in the last 4 days since Monday. Globally, the number is now very close to 42 million cases. That number is 41,982,448. And if you remember, it was Monday morning that the global number surpassed 40 million. So now, 5 days later, we're at almost 42 million global cases. The total number of deaths globally is now at 1,140,422. That is almost 25,000 new COVID-19 deaths globally since Monday. Bringing it back here to Ohio, Governor Mike DeWine held an impromptu press conference today to talk about how Ohio will be spending its CARES Act money. Ohio was awarded more CARES Act money at the beginning of the month, so now the governor has a plan for how to spend more than $400 million of it. Now, the governor has not allocated all of the money yet. He said because the nature of the pandemic does continue to change. It's a fluid situation, of course, and also to keep negotiations open for future spending. But as of right now, here's how Ohio will be allocating its CARES Act money. $50 million for rental, mortgage, or utility assistance, which Ohioans can apply for. There are details on WKYC.com about who is eligible and how to apply. $125 million for small business relief. These are for businesses that have 25 employees or less. About $38 million for the support of bars and restaurants. These are bars and restaurants that have dine-in options. $62 million for rural and critical access hospitals. $100 million for higher education. Now, this money is earmarked for critical services, including on-campus COVID-19 testing and mental health services. And then also $45 million for nonprofits and the arts, which have been hit particularly hard by the pandemic. Now, this plan does still need to be approved by the state controlling board, and Governor Mike DeWine hopes to have that approval on Monday. Now, over the weekend, we will be seeing visits from the candidates as we are now just 11 days out from the upcoming election. President Donald Trump will be in Ohio on Saturday. He'll be having a rally in Circleville, which is just outside of Columbus, at around 4 p.m. on Saturday. So those doors are expected to open at 1 p.m. at the Pickaway Agriculture and Event Center. There will also be other Republican candidates at these events, and this is just after Vice President Mike Pence plans to visit Eugene F. Kranz Toledo Express Airport today, so he's expected to be there today. The Libertarian presidential candidate Joe Jorgensen will be visiting Toledo as well on Saturday, and Senator Kamala Harris, the Democratic candidate for vice president, will be in Cleveland on Saturday. We don't yet know the details of exactly where she'll be. This is a rescheduled visit. She was supposed to be here last Friday, but had to cancel that because of several of people on her staff testing positive for COVID-19. But she has now rescheduled that and does plan to be here on Saturday. Of course, we'll give you details about that as soon as we have them. You can stay up to date on WKYC.com for that. Now, looking to the weekend, the Cleveland Browns will be taking on the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday, and the question that a lot of people are asking is, can Baker Mayfield prove he's the franchise quarterback for the Cleveland Browns? Well, our 3 News sports analyst Ben Axelrod took a look at that question in a column on WKYC.com, and taking a look at the fact that this is year 3 for Mayfield in his contract. That's critical for a quarterback in terms of his contract, and Baker knows that. He said as much back in May, but then he also said that he's not putting any added pressure on himself. He said, if we win, things will take care of themselves. Well, Ben's take on that is the reality is Baker hasn't necessarily been playing really well even in the wins, and while the Browns are off to their best start in 19 years, Mayfield doesn't necessarily look like the primary reason for that. Now, some NFL analysts even argue that Cleveland is winning not because of Baker's leadership, but in spite of him being the quarterback. The Browns do have the league's top rushing attack and also a defense that leads the NFL with 12 takeaways. But if you take a look at the division, the Browns have now lost to the Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens by a combined score of 76-13. So giving up 76 points, only scoring 13 points now with 10 games left. Let's take a look at some of the statistics when it comes to Baker Mayfield. Through the first 6 games, he ranks 29th in the NFL in completion percentage. That's 60.6%. He ranks 26th in yards, which just under 1,100 yards, and 13th in touchdowns with 10 touchdowns. But he ranks 4th in throwing the most interceptions, including a pick 6 on Sunday to the Steelers safety Minkah Fitzpatrick that put the Steelers up 10-0 early in the game. So you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that those numbers aren't great. And as Ben writes in the column, it's not quite so simple for Baker Mayfield as putting wins in the win column and no losses or less losses in the loss column. So right now, there are more questions than answers about Baker Mayfield's future in Cleveland. We'll have to see what happens for the next 10 games in the NFL season. But we do know that tight end Austin Hooper will be out this week because he has appendicitis. Head coach Kevin Stefanski said today that he's having an appendectomy today. So we don't know the timetable for Hooper's return to the tight end position for the Cleveland Browns. We do know that he has caught 22 passes for 205 yards, and he scored a touchdown already in the first 6 games for Cleveland. But with Hooper out, the Browns will be looking to rookie Harrison Bryant and 2017 first-round pick David Njoku. Steven Carlson could also see more playtime as well because Stefanski does like to load up on tight ends on the field. But the Browns are banged up in a lot of ways leading into the game on Sunday. Guard Wyatt Teller is still out with a calf strain. Linebacker Jacob Phillips is out with a knee injury. And safety Carl Joseph is now questionable with a hamstring injury. Now, quarterback Baker Mayfield, who got pulled at the half of the game last week for his ribs, he is scheduled to start right now against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals will be starting running back Joe Mixon. Their starting running back Joe Mixon is out with a foot injury. So they'll be down at least one starter on Sunday as well. That will be a game to watch. It's always a game to watch, but we'll see what happens there. A lot of people taking a look at what happens, how the Browns bounce back from that big loss to the Steelers this past week. Now, speaking of Cleveland, there are a lot of people who will say Ohioans don't have an accent, but actually they do. And Mike Polk Jr. did the research to prove it. He talked to a linguist who informed us, this is Edward McClellan, he's the author of How to Speak Midwestern, that here in Cleveland, the accent is the Inland North accent. And according to this linguist, it's a very distinct A that makes cat sound like cat, and the O in pop sound like pop. Now, I am from Canton, so I do not have a Cleveland accent. I have a Canton accent, which we can get a little twangy with our A's sometimes. But if you want to check if you have the Cleveland accent, you can try out some of the sentences that Mike tried in his story. By the way, he put our coworkers to the test: Dave Chudowski, Betsy Kling, Mark Namick, and Lindsey Buckingham, to show off. He tricked them into showing off their Cleveland accents. You need to watch the story to see who they determined had the most Cleveland accent. But the sentences that you can try out for yourself are too hot for hockey, and also my mom got my dad a can of pop. Now, like I said, I'm not from Cleveland per se. I'm from Canton, so you're hearing my Canton accent, and me trying to do the Cleveland accent would just be me doing an impression of the Cleveland accent. But, you know, the more time I spend here, maybe I'll pick up on that official Cleveland accent. Check it out. It's on WKYC.com. It's very funny, as always, from Mike Polk Jr. That's it for your 3 News Now afternoon update for Friday, October 23rd. I will see you next on What's New at 5 p.m. with the trending stories in the Clicking in Cleveland segment. And then I will see you back on Monday with 3 News Now. And while you're at it this weekend, this would be a great time for you to subscribe to the 3 News Now with Stephanie Haney podcast. Yes, you can get this as a podcast. Just search 3 News Now with Stephanie Haney on your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe, rate, and review. I would really appreciate it so that you can help us connect with more people here in Northeast Ohio. Everyone enjoy this beautiful weather. Watch out for the thunderstorms if you're in those watch areas, and I'll see you back here on Monday. I'm Stephanie Haney.